Welcome back to the Product Operations Summit. Before we get going with the next session, we would like to take a moment to thank our sponsors for helping us bring this awesome event to your screens. And don't forget, you can access even more content from past and future events on demand by becoming a PLA member. Head on over to productledalliance.com for more information. Enjoy the next session.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Product Operations Festival. I'm joined here today with Becky Flint. Becky Flint is the founder and CEO of Dragonboat.io, a platform for outcome-focused product operations. Becky and the team work with product operations across the globe daily. Prior to founding Dragonboat, Becky built and scaled product operations for companies such as PayPal and Shutterfly. I'm now going to pass you over to Becky, who's going to take you through her presentation, Forming to Performing. So over to you, Becky.
Thank you for that intro. And well, great to see everyone. It is such an exciting time to see product operations. Back in the days, we weren't even calling this role as product operations. So going through the journey, as Rec introduced, where going through my career journey, joining at PayPal as one of the first product ops at the time when PayPal was so small, the product manager fit into one room, to later on into tens of thousands of people, and then later on work at a couple more amazing companies as Shutterfly, BigCommerce, and Visa. And today, working with the product operations every day across the global thousands of teams, we realize there's a pattern of product operations going from forming to performing. And there are some lessons learned, some tricks, and some hiccups as well. So hopefully today's session can share some glimpse of what has been working and some of the challenges. So for this audience, by now, we probably already know, right? You heard of product ops is the connector, the glue, the golden thread that gets the team work well together within the product team and within our stakeholders, the go-to-market teams, and so on. And it is not easy. Come to the stage, right, as the connector. We have gone through sort of the forming phase, what was the challenge, why we need it get through the buy-in, then you have to go through the storming, figure out what should we do. We can do some surveys, some assessment, and so on. So you're familiar with this sort of the four phases of the team: forming, storming, norming to performing. And during the phase of the storming, you can also see the team, not product ops team, the product organizations, actually their performance dip a little bit as they figure out, as the team figured out how do we get there, right? So hopefully through the community we have, through these events and other resources that we have at Dragonboat, we can fast track this into the next phase. Now, what's next? So you may not know, a lot of product operations team are practitioners. Their careers stall. Their role somewhat gets a little bit diminished in terms of impact, about 9 to 12 months out. And sometimes they became sort of like a team admin and people get confused. You can almost draw an analogy of the early days of the Agile. You have a Scrum Master, and over time that role kind of went away, right? And what's happening is what gets you here won't get you there. We've probably heard of this a lot of times in career and in this role as well. Being a glue is no longer sufficient once you have a first phase of growth. We call it the first phase, product ops 1.0. The first phase is the connector, the glue, and you get every product ops have a couple of teams, and you can get going, right? So what's next? And the next will require us to take a step back to really think about what is the need, right? Product operations as a role, like every role, is a product itself. It's a service product. So we have to take a step back to say, based on our customer needs, where things are. So the bigger picture is this, right? Every product organization, every company needs to set strategy. Clear strategy depends on the clear vision, clear strategy based on the data and effects. That's why a lot of product ops team really get diving into the elements of it. And then you build strategy that's a effective, high performing, high growth product moving forward like that. Now, there's a second part of the product organization needs, which is the operations. How do we build the work and the strategy and how we make it happen? That's the team, the structures, the work, and driving alignment across the board. And you continue going with that. And you can see strategy can be solid. Operations, not so much. It's kind of wobbling. And that's where Product Ops 1.0 come into play, right? The connector. I am holding this together. As the company grows, do we just add more people? That kind of went to the stage to say, that's where we stop. Because the value we add, holding things together, cannot be linear. So that really coming to the second phase, Product Ops. We call it Product Ops 2.0. At that time, it's no longer just the driving force, not just the connecting. It is multiplying. The force multiplier, this is actually a term I think Melissa Perry called it out. It really takes the product ops into a different sphere where you think about the system. It's no longer people, no longer the role, it's the system. The system includes the structure, include the cadence, and including the tooling. So a lot of times people came to us all the time, people come to me all the time, and we struggled in our career earlier days on how do you structure product ops. That's a much bigger topic. So in today, we just cover a little briefly. Here, there are some sort of like three general categories of product ops org structure, and they can be applied. A lot of times there are some similarity in terms of the types of the size of the team and type of the work. If you think about it, smaller team, quite often the centralized makes sense. As a centralized team, you can build best practices and you can load balance in between product ops members. And the centralized team also quite often pick up the sort of the miscellaneous and roles for the organization. Could be data, could be tech doc, go to market, launch, and so on. Once the team gets a little bit bigger, you start to see different team operates differently. So centralized will not really be flexible enough to really drive and support different needs on the product teams, on the product organization itself. Therefore, the embedded model become more common, where on one instance, you have those teams like a growth team, they are iterating, they're experimenting, they need different types of product ops and different types of operating model. Where you have other teams, such as a platform team, you have to do very effective planning because all the other teams require their support. So embedded model worked really well by applying different method you learned from a 1.0 coming to here. And you also start to build a specialty teams, mostly around enable PMs, onboarding and training and so on. Now, when you get a little bit bigger, that portfolio, when you get into the realms of 20 PMs, you have a CPO, so you have a multiple VPs, different product lines, then either of the model would have its limits. So we go into a hybrid model where you have a solid line and you have a dotted line. Quite often you solid line into product ops practice in general, and you have the dotted line with your partner, right? The partner quite often is the VP for the product, and quite often it's aligned to business lines or product lines. And at this time, you also start to see the specialties. You have a product ops manager, who are most likely are the ones like a product ops 1.0 type of the role. And then you have a portfolio leads, who are the ones managing multiple product ops team and really aligned to the VP. Now, and the third role is the strategic operations. Strategic operations, it quite often is either as a dual role played at the head of the product ops, or maybe have one or two person play that role, really a tag team with the CPOs and product executives to align and to connect strategy and operations. And that's time also you run into situations where you lose some of the areas into other functions, the research and the data, product marketing and launch and so on, because these functions are not just for product. It's actually better to use it across the team, across the company. Now, obviously, there's a lot more about the product org structure, product ops org structure, product org structure in general. So if you're interested, log on to DragonBoat, find out dragonboat.io/product ops, and there are a lot of content over there around this topic. Now, the second part we covered as building an effective system is to have a cadence. Now, most of the product ops are actually most of the product teams very familiar with the product development lifecycle, right? So you have the goals, you have the strategy, and then you plan and you build roadmaps and you deliver and so on. So that's sort of like the horizontal direction. Now, product ops portfolio 2.0 required a portfolio level cadence. Really is vertical. Think about how you can connect different time horizon. You can connect different org level and really drive investment evaluation and outcome delivery. So just a small fun fact. Every product manager managed anywhere between 1 million to 5 million resources, let alone the future of the company. So product ops is one of the most leveraged role in the company. If you have 3 or 4 pods with you, easily go to 20, 30 million in terms of the investment decision that you are orchestrating. So effective force multiplier need to understand the portfolio, understand the cadence. So now, what do you do it? Do you run it? Do you run it by spreadsheets? Do you run it by some, critical decision needs a critical tool. And the product operating system is the type tool you need. The type of tools that make and enable product ops to be able to tie and to build a strategy and tie strategy to the operations and to connect the team together to really drive the outcome of your organization. So if you look at this, the foundation's data at all levels, data at the product level, data at the portfolio level, data at the outcome level. And you will have to build roadmaps. You will have PMs need to be able to work effectively. Enable team is the #1 goal, and it's the most foundational goal. If that one fails, everything else collapses. Then we still need to think about how we enable team and teamwork together. How do we tie executives and the team together? How we tie longer term and near term together? How do we make these product investment decisions to actually drive the outcome you need? And those really influence the role of the product ops 2.0, and also really influence how you can continuously grow and scale and ultimately drive the outcome at all levels. So we talk about forming, storming, norming, and performing. We should also know that it is not the end. It's not a one-step process. Just like every single product, you go through the S-curve, right? So you go through the S-curve of enable PM, job done, continue going, but that's not enough. Then you enable teams of teams. That's your second phase. And then you start to enable the strategic ops, really tied to the company, the strategy, the people, the investment, the product, and customer together. And that is the continuous performing for product operations. And that's where your role evolving versus stalling on the first phase and became, sort of diminishing a return on the effort you put in. So we at DragonBoat very excited and passionate about building product ops as a force multiplier movement. We also build communities around it. So some of the additional resources for you to tag into, and that conclude the presentation. Would love to have a conversation with you to hear more about what's your experience, what are your challenges, and how you think about the product ops structure, and how you think about the forming and the performing of product operations.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Becky. That was a really great presentation. And we do have some questions in the chat for you. So let me just grab it. How do you make sure product ops objectives are aligned with the product management objectives?
This is a very interesting question. I would say product managers are one of the customers of product ops, right? So product managers typically have objectives tied to company goals and tied to product strategy. So product ops quite often to enable these product teams to be able to effectively deliver to that. Now, on the other hand, that product ops goals need to also support the ecosystem where product managers operate in. So that means you have to align to your your business stakeholders. You need to align to your executive teams on how to make sure your product teams have the resources and have the capabilities and support to really achieve their goals. So to answer this question, two fronts. One is to understand their goals so that we can identify bottlenecks and help them to be successful. So that's the product ops 1.0, enable the team. And the product ops 2.0 is to make sure there are things that for the product team to operate in, the ecosystem is equally important, if not more important. So how do you align that with the executive team, with a longer term vision and strategy, and across the team, make sure your product team have the support is the second part of that. And how do you find out? You can do service, right? You can do service, you can do assessment, you can set out the goals to say goal alignment in the beginning and then goal alignment at the end of the period.
Awesome, thank you so much. So the next question, do you recommend companies of all sizes having product ops?
Yes, with a caveat. So I think one of the CPOs that I spoke to some time ago, we were just joking about product ops. This is a big topic today now, and obviously it's great because we've been practicing this for a long time. But people don't realize that you cannot do product without an ops, right? There are two needs, right? One need is a strategy, the other one is operations. So you cannot just have a strategy, no operations. Therefore, you always have product ops. Now, at which point you need a dedicated person to do that? And that's really the question. Quite often you have 3 to 4 teams, your company is growing and become more complex, the communication overhead is too high, and you start to have chaos. Now, a little bit chaos is okay. When does the chaos become a problem is when it causes confusion. Confusion causes what? Bad decisions, because we use wrong data to make a decision by different people. And that's where chaos becomes the enemy of the product organization. And that's the time you start to look at, do we need a dedicated person to do product ops so that product managers can do product manager work, and these cross-functional teams does not have to bombard everyone. So that's really the start of the product ops 1.0.
Awesome. So next question, why do you think a dedicated tool like Dragonboat is better than other more familiar tools for product teams? For example, Jira and Jira Advanced Roadmaps.
So a tool determines how you think and work. We all know Jira is very much an execution-focused tool. And execution focused it's all about it's about structure, it's about clear, it's about a delivery. When you are product ops, there's a lot of evaluation, a lot of fuzzy piece of it, a lot of what if. And when you use a structured execution focused tool, it inevitably to drive to think that way. So a tool actually determines how you work and vice versa. That's why we said to do the job right, you're gonna find the right tool. And tied to the other question of the Jira Advanced Roadmap, you hear that, right? One is Jira, the other one is the roadmap. You look at it, it's really a Gantt chart. Product ops is way more than, managing products is way more than Gantt chart. How do you think about the outcome? How do you think about the strategy? How do you think about the customer needs? There's a lot of moving pieces. Again, the tool determines how you work, how you think, and vice versa. Pick the right tool for the type of the product ops you want it to be.
Awesome. Next question. How can you develop yourself to be Product Ops 2.0 from Product Ops 1.0?
Right. So there are two paths for it. One is through learning and failing in a trip. The other one is through accelerated learning, which is through doing and through coaching, through having membership, and also getting the buy-in. That's why we have the community. PLI is a great community, and Dragonboat also sponsor lots of great content. We have the Products HQ, and these are the areas that we can learn and bounce ideas from each other, so that hopefully we don't repeat the mistakes and the others already made, and leverage some of the learnings now with a grain of salt. Right? Not every learning is equally applicable to you. So that's why the coaching part also makes sense, that if you hear people to say, here's how we do it, take a look, say what kind of company they worked on. Is it relevant to my company? What kind of role that person was playing? Because there's a lot of noise out there, right? So some of them totally make sense for that company, for that role at that moment, for that industry, but not necessary for you. So always look at the person give the advice to say, what they have done in what kind of setting is relevant to the company, the stage, industry, and size as I am today.
Awesome, thank you. Next question. Is it possible to be successful doing product ops part-time as a group PM?
Yes, depending on where your role is and the size and complexity of that. So I was a group PM at PayPal as well. And at one point, I had to make a choice where I'm going, right? Because the operational side of things is quite a bit of thinking of product. You can definitely apply product practice almost for any role, product ops for sure. But the time and the thoughts and the focus is very different. So if your role is less demanding, you have relatively smaller team, by default, you play that role. Now, if your role becomes more challenging, you have a lot of teams to coach, to guide them, then you have to think about when you have a 3, 4, 5 direct reports, that would become a little bit more challenging.
Awesome, thank you. This question has been upvoted as well, quite popular. What kind of metrics can you use to track and measure product ops efficiency and effectiveness?
Right. So there are a few metrics that I would think about. If you talk about the effectiveness and efficiency, really think about how much of most force multiplier you are supporting. If your product ops support one team, then next quarter should be 2 teams. The next quarter should be 3 teams. And then later on, even if you don't have more teams, how much you spend with these teams, and how much time you stay with the stakeholders, how much you spend time. So what is looking at where you spend time and how many teams you can support, right? And also how much you can influence in terms of the company's investment direction. That's sort of the depth and the breadth, so the efficiency and the effectiveness. Second part of that is to say, am I successful? Really tied to, is our company successful? Is my company's success ultimately what product organization exists and why the product ops exists in the first place? So you have to ask yourself, say, how does your company make decisions? How does your product team make decisions? Do they have goals? Do they have product goals? Do they measure goals? How much they're achieving the goals that they set? So there's delivery goals, there's actually business goals, there's customer goals. All these goals, if you can see, right, track it, how much you actually have things tied to goals versus not, how much you deliver the goals as promised, how much investment take you to deliver that. I'm talking about the 3 phases of the maturity and also the impact of our product ops, for example. And obviously, things about how quickly teams can onboard and how much the churn feeling within your cross-functional teams and so on. This is kind of like NPS type of measurement as well.
And there is a follow-up as well from Elizabeth that says, and a follow-up question to my previous, is it fair to exclusively measure the success of product ops by the success of the product?
That is a tricky question. So it depends. The reason is because everything has to be 2 parts. One is if we think about ROI, that makes sense, right? Is something successful, has to think about what is the return on investment. So if we put a lot of effort to drive the success, the ROI is not favorable. Even the absolute value of the success, adoptions, other stuff, right? So at what cost is important. So the success of the product is one contribution to that. The second part of that is really, is quote unquote the product that equal to the company outcome? Not necessarily, right? Using the example, I'm just using an example for Amazon, right? Amazon has a multiple business. So is the success of the Whole Foods the best success of the head of the product ops for Amazon, or Whole Foods plus the AWS, different business unit, different product line? So quite often when product ops, especially when they're embedded in the business unit, they kind of have a focused or tunnel vision of the area they're thinking. They're not necessarily thinking about at portfolio level. Are we making the right decision? Sometimes you have to trade off and reduce and affect the quality and outcome of one product or one product area or one segment of the customer to drive more effective outcome and the growth in other areas. So the product ops role is very interesting, where your quote unquote close partner may not be your only customer, because your company is your customer, right?
Awesome, thank you so much. So the next question is, what is the career trajectory towards leadership with product ops?
Well, I'm a CEO and founder of Dragonboat, and I started my career sort of from product to product ops. So you can see that's definitely one of the trajectory. You can start with the product ops, and then you can go to strategy ops, and then you can go to product executives, and you can go to COOs, you can go to CEOs and founder. That's one way. Or we have seen product ops go into directions into, product management, design, business operations, data analytics, really focus on functional strengths they want. And in other words, it's very common in a lot of ops roles, not just product ops. The same thing for design ops or same thing for revenue ops. Is that because they work with so many different functions that require the ops interaction, they have a much broader career choice to go up or to go different areas. So, I would say it's almost unlimited, right? You can go business, you can go technology, you can go to product, and you can start your own company.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We only have time for a couple more questions, but we'll try and get through as many as possible. What are the top soft and hard skills needed for product operations?
So ideally, product ops need to have a balanced skill of both bigger picture and level of details. They have to be a people, right? You have to be able to work with the cross-functional teams, and you also have to be sort of the right brain, left brain, a lot involved, right? You need to be able to work with the teams and be able to also drive the team to results. And you have to be able to have big picture to understand where we're going, and then at the same time dive deep to understand where the challenges are. Problem solving definitely will be one of them, right? Communication will be one of them. Leadership skills. Why is it important? Because you are basically leading the team without authority, right? Team look up to you. And think about the product management skills. In many ways, it's tied to it. To understand the problem, understand your customer, prioritize where your focus things are, and measure the outcome of it. So product management skill in general is very broad. It's very fuzzy. But that's something really, really helpful for you to be successful is to think about, key thing is to think about who is your customer, right? And if you identify a very small segment of customer, you cannot be successful. Now, you won't support all customers at the same level all the time. So think about who's your customer, who's in the most lead, where the ROI of your time makes sense, and how you balance the things, how you build a structure, how you automate, how you have a system, versus you have to personally dive in to figure out solving something and build a system to enable it.
Awesome. And then we've got a sort of dilemma here. So one challenge I've run into with measuring product ops impact is that it's difficult to identify the actual business impact / new business capabilities that can be attributed to product ops, since so much of our work supports delivery of other functions. How do you solve that?
It's very interesting to think about it. It's the same for leaders. Leaders don't quote unquote do the work themselves. Right? So think about product ops is really to say, how do you align? How do you plan? And do we deliver to plan? Because that's basically it. Can you align everyone to come to a plan? Now, strategy is a plan. People tend to think about plans sort of delivery. No, the strategy is a plan. If we have this goal, we have this strategy, we have these initiatives, do we have a roadmap? Do we have a plan we can actually deliver to it? So in some ways, we have to figure out, do we actually achieve what we set out to achieve? Do we set out to achieve the goals? Do we set out to achieve to deliver the roadmap? If you have that, that's the ultimate measure, right? Because the success of the team means the team can deliver what they promised that will drive the business outcome, not just the features, what they promised in terms of features, as well as the outcome. So ultimately, that's the product. Did your team, will you really enable your team to deliver what they promised? Was the plan solid? Was the delivery solid? Strategy, operation, having a system.
Awesome. I've got another question, which I was messaged separately. How can leaders ensure that product operation managers are effectively onboarding to be successful in an embedded model of product operations?
Right. So embedded model does not take a fully outside of the system of how you take best practices. Just like a product managers come on board, even though they go to their pods or their teams, at some point they still have to go through the overall. So product ops, even in the embedded model, need to go through sort of the best practices and the learnings. The other thing to keep in mind is product ops as the most leveraged role in the company, you have probably smallest number compared to everything else, right? You have more PMs, you have more engineers and others. So it is really important for product ops to take on external learning, getting their teams to take on external learning to growing the community like this, events like this, and other resources such as DragonBoat and Product Ops HQ are the places to learn what best practices are and bring that to your team, to your company.
Awesome. How can you decide on the right timing to grow and scale your team?
I would say two things. Number one, have you reached the 1.0? Does your team feel like they know what's going on? Does the team feel like, hey, the product ops is adding value? And then you start to scale to say, hey, we don't have enough people, right? So when you have, if we say we have 3 people, we're chaotic, we need 1 more product ops. No, that's not the way to look at it. You would say it was 3 people, we're effective, now we're growing. How do we support the growth? And that should be the right question. We should hire to support the growth. We should not hire to deal with the chaos because we're not ready to hire.
Awesome. And then I think we have just the final question. Lots of amazing questions. How can product ops help to make product teams more customer centric?
This is a great question. Product managers tend to be pretty in tune to listen to customers and pretty in tune to get feedbacks and getting data and getting insights and so on. Now, they don't necessarily represent customer centric because quite often, learning from my experience, as also talking to a lot of people, is that you can get lots of noisy customers. They can flood your system with the hundreds of the requests and data and all that stuff, but they don't represent the customer you listen to. So product ops is really important for your customer to ground the customer, say, who are they? Where do you get the data? Where do you get the feedback? And do not tie customer feedback requests to features because customer never ask the right thing they want, right? You need to understand feedback and request insights are just inspiration. So customer-centric means truly understand that. Take a look at the data and understand it and digest and solving the customer problem the way a product manager should, not a customer tell you how they want it. So that's really the key of product ops driving customer-centric. It's not do what customer asks you. Hear what they say and watch what they do and understand the reason why and the build product actually solving the problem better than they asked for.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Becky, for such a great presentation and for answering so many great questions. Thank you to everyone who has tuned in today and for engaging and asking great questions. It'll be great to see you. We've still got a few more sessions left of the festival. We do also have another virtual festival happening next month, our product-led festival. So I'd love to see more of you there as well. But I hope you enjoy the rest of the sessions. And one last thank you again to Becky for such a great session.
Yeah, thanks everyone. I have fun every year. So if you have questions, feel free to reach out on LinkedIn, Becky Flint. So look forward to partner with you, get to know more of the community members. Thanks.
Yes, that'd be great. Oh, sorry. I was going to say there's been some great discussions carrying on from some of the previous sessions on LinkedIn. There's some great posts and stuff flying around off the back of some of the questions. So it'd be great to see some more of that from this session. But yeah, thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.